Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south, in the land of the free and the home of the brave, on a beautiful July the 5th, 2019. Grondo Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Charlton, it's hot and sweaty down here, but I was thinking about going out buying some stock and chapstick and Carmen. Because all the media and all the basketball teams have been buying it up, fixing up to Kawhi Leonard, trying to get him to make a decision.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll make that decision when he's good and ready. That's like they say, they'll sell no wine before his time. Somebody said that back in the day. I'm still enamored with the 4th of July and seeing the celebration that they had in Washington, D.C. for all 1,500 people that showed up for that celebration, the POTUS parade, where he tried to be like Putin and every other dictator around the country or around the world. And I don't know I think it was a big waste of taxpayer money. It's all fair and love and for some baseball things happening in the sports universe. Love baseball starting to get its swing now that we're through with NBA and NHL. But it's like football's right around the corner. But I think I had some common sense this 4th of July. I know I celebrated the 4th of July, just sitting around eating and then also having some phone conversations. One of my friends, Native American, he didn't celebrate the 4th of July at all. But I know it's all fair and love and war. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. Big C, I want to ask you, I know you Southern guys get down a little bit different than we do in California. Are there any frog legs left at your restaurants, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, there was a couple that got away. We found them. They were still alive. They were hiding up under the refrigeration unit.
Yeah.
But they were quickly succumb, and they joined the rest of the buddies.
Yeah, they joined the rest of the buddy. I've always thought it was so cruel where people think that the best served lobster is lobster that's alive and dropped in boiling water. And I want to know, there's no way to really be nice about how you eat livestock. I know I grew up on a small farm myself, and we had livestock, and sometime grandmama said, go get some chicken. We having chicken for dinner. And so people are asking, well, whose car can we drive? And grandma would go out and grab it by the neck, swing it around, and then it's not always fun to know where your food comes from, Big C.
Well, Charlton, everyone talks about, the humane part of having a meal. Charlton, it's no different than hunting. The animals are there for consumption. And, humans have made them there for consumption. So, you got PETA and you got all these other countries, organizations out there crying about how you're treating animals. And, we've talked about Santa Anita, how there's been more concern from lawmakers in California about the horses in Santa Anita, Dianne Feinstein, longtime senator, than about the people that are inhumanely housed down on the border. She's worried about the housing of horses at a racetrack, not the housing of human beings that'll be, stacked in the pens down on the southern border, Charles.
Yeah, well, we know it's all fair and low. I know she has the money. A lot of these people own horses. But how was your Independence Day? I saw some celebrations that were in New York, also in San Francisco, Northern California. The weather was perfect, but it was also raining in Washington, D.C. for the POTUS parade, Big C. I think he was lamenting for the tanks that he wished he would have been on had he not had 5 deferments, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I don't know if there was rain or those were tears from heaven, Charlton, because that people were crying about, how he's abusing military families right now.
Yeah.
You think about this celebratory incident that he put on in Washington, D.C. to celebrate himself because he wants to have the role of a dictator.
Yeah.
We think about our military veterans, Charlton, that over 22 a day are committing suicide in this country for PSDs and even, veterans from Vietnam War.
Yeah,
Charlton.
yeah.
That veterans, we have military personnel, Charlton, that are underfunded. Their families are struggling, going to food pantries, trying to make it through the month to support themselves. The housing that they have to live in, a lot of them have to live in dilapidated military housing. It's not the best. I mean, ask Ben Carson, because he doesn't know what it is. And he's supposed to be handling that.
Yeah.
But, the money that the president spent on this so-called celebratory situation that he was having in Washington, D.C., why did not he allocate that money out to active military families, Charlton, to veterans, to help them better their quality of life, other than putting on this charade that meant nothing? I listened to him speak, Charlton, and I heard my 6th and 7th grade teachers saying the same thing that he said.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
This weak little historical tutorial that he was allegedly giving, and he had to read it because he knew none of it from his heart. He knew none of it from his heart, so he had to turn and keep reading from the prompter and squinting, Charlton.
Yeah.
So as you're sitting here saying that we're going to make America great, why did you talk about all the things that America's done in the past? You haven't spoke about anything that you're doing to improve America, but you talked about all the plights of people in history of what they've done to create, equality in America, to make life better in America, Charlton, to bring Americans together. He talked about those people. He had nothing that he could say about himself that equaled any of those things that those historical people in America have done, Charlton.
Yeah, and we just know that for whoever celebrated the 4th of July, like I said, I have some Native American friends, and we talk about, they don't celebrate the 4th of July, but there are a lot, and that's understandable. I mean, everybody has their own things to celebrate, but I do know as people get together and do what they got to do to celebrate and eat and etc., there's a national suicide hotline, because there are a lot of veterans that have issues, and sometimes if you're young and dumb, sometimes you don't know when to say, you know what, my bad, because you're stupid. And let a lot of stupid people, sometimes they just drink too much and look for bad things to happen to them or people they say they care about. But there's a national suicide hotline, 800-273-8255, 800-273-8255. A lot of teenagers are out of school now. They got about another 45 days before they go back to school. And sometimes I hear about kids being bullied. Sometimes you read about it in the news, or sometimes you know about it because you hear little kids talking. Well, they may not like to pick up the phone and call Big C, but they can pick up the phone and they can text for help. You can text 838-255. That's 838-255 for anybody going through something. And we hope that everybody has a lot of, just success. And you want to be healthy in life. You want people to be kind to you. And if not, then just leave you alone. I do want to say it for one of our media brethren, Big C, the Teddy Bruschi. I remember watching Teddy Bruschi play football in a high school in Northern California. Played for a high school up near Sacramento called Roseville, the Roseville Tigers. And the first time I'd ever seen them play, they played at one of the Northern California powers called Rancho Cordova. And they were coached by the great Hall of Fame high school coach Max Miller, and Roseville beat them. And there was a kid from Roseville that was about 6 feet tall, maybe 5'11", about 210 pounds, and he was on the line. Big C, this guy made like 20 tackles. I thought, who in the world is this kid? Never really heard from him. But he went on to the University of Arizona. They started Desert Swarm. Name is Teddy Bruschi. Played for the New England Patriots. Has a Super Bowl ring. Now he works in media. Well, I hope he's okay. He had a stroke on the 4th of July weekend. And he also had a stroke back in, I believe, 2005. And I know athletes, we just talked about the player down in Texas, Big C, for the Angels. And we just hope that everybody's safe. Life is a gift. You got to open it every day. If you have a grudge against somebody, just drop it. Because life is not guaranteed. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you hope all the best for Teddy Bruschi and his family. He did suffer a stroke when he was an active player in the NFL back in 2004, and he was able to come back and continue his career and go on to win another Super Bowl trophy with the New England Patriots prior to retiring. But, having gone through this before, he knew all the signs, Charlton, of what a stroke occurrence was. And so he was able to get medical attention immediately. Everybody doesn't understand the signs of a stroke, but he understood the numbness in the arm, the droopiness in the face. Yeah. And he was able to alert the people that were around him, Charlton, to get him to the hospital expeditiously. Yeah. And you hope all the best for Teddy, but every American should understand the warning signs of health issues. And don't sit there and say, well, I'll just rest and it'll get better. I'm just tired.
Yeah.
Seek out medical attention. That's what it's there for. That's the reason why President Obama installed the Affordable Care Act, for you to be able to afford insurance so that you can go to the hospital and be checked, go to the doctor's office and be checked.
Yeah.
If you listen to our Republican senators who are saying that you don't have the need for health care, that 30 million Americans don't deserve health care, think about who you vote for the next time.
Yeah, you can't afford health care, but we can afford some tanks tearing up the street in Washington, D.C. I want to just bring up this thought with Teddy Bruschi, because I've known of other athletes who had different ailments, Big C, and some suffered strokes and others suffered what they would just call a seizure. It was the same thing, Big C. And oftentimes, when I was playing back in the day, they would give guys what's called smelling salts. Now, I'm not saying the strokes and seizure are the same thing, but I know they have similar consequences when people black out. And there were this whole misnomer of give them some smelling salts and hope that they're okay. Now, we know medical science is so much better today, Big C, than back then. But I also want to say, there's time when people get too much heat. They can also have a fatality, or they can also have maybe a blackout spell. Just give me your thought on why it's important to not think you're tough and just pick up that phone and call 911 and get some help, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, even in these, very hot days of summer, everyone is talking about hydrating.
Yeah.
People don't realize that the body can consume too much liquid to cause a medical imbalance, Charlton.
Yeah.
So you have to drink in moderation. Even though you might be hot and you're consuming too much liquid, make sure you drink the proper type of liquid. I know they want to force a lot of Gatorade and Powerade on the youth, saying, just walking around. It has too much sodium in it, Charlton.
Yeah.
Which creates another imbalance in the system. Just plain water, but drink that water in moderation. And you're better off drinking that water at room temperature, not cold, because you alter the body too much.
Yeah.
You give the body a false sensation. You want to drink it while it's warm, and the body will stop it when it's had enough. Just like filling up your car. Once it's topped off, it's had enough. When you drink the water when it's cold, you get a false sensation. You consume too much. Now all of a sudden you can end up having a heat stroke for being overhydrated, Charles.
Yeah, and also just, again, wishing Teddy Bruschi well. Now, I don't know him personally, but I do know the part of Northern California that he came from. And just because you're an athlete, it doesn't mean you got to be tough. I'm glad that he was able to get help, and hope that a lot of other people can get help. But in just hearing about Teddy Bruschi, and I've known other men who've suffered strokes too. Now, I want to just, because sports is huge. Everybody plays from the World Cup, from the Super Bowl, NBA Finals, Major League Baseball, golf. It's all big, Big C. But for people who have a situation, it could be your own, or it could be an athlete, it could be just a family member. There's something called a HIPAA violation. And everyone dealing with court, or a parent that's going through some issues, any of your children, or even yourself, we need to know this. I know a lot of people want to know, well, who won the game? Well, we're going to tell you about who won the game, but this is for people who want to be educated, just like I was, being in the insurance business. It's called HIPAA. It's Health, Insurance Portability, and Accountability. It's an act started in 1996, the United States legislation, that provides data privacy and security provisions for safeguarding a person's medical information. Now, the reason we know about Teddy Bruschi is because it came out, I believe either he or his representative released that. But Big C, did you know that there have been many cases already in 2019 where a HIPAA violation means a medical facility or a hospital administrator gives your personal information to someone who does not have a power of attorney, or they're not on the list that can give out and receive information. And there have been settlements up to $4 million just by telling somebody who's lying to be your relative or someone close to you. Some hospitals are dumb enough to give out that information, and they've been sued for the tune of up to $4 million. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, privacy in America is something that we all take for granted, not realizing that every day that somebody's trying to steal your information for their advantage. People, when you're seeking out someone's personal information, it's not for their well-being, Charlton. And when we look at the elderly in this country, Charlton, how often they're abused, just like with the president, abusing elderly military people, Charlton, with his charade yesterday that he put on in Washington, D.C. He didn't think about, he want to talk about veterans of the past, Charlton, about what they meant to this country. But he didn't do anything about saying, I'm going to help. I'm going to reform the VA, Charlton.
Right.
I'm going to make sure that every veteran out there gets care. I'm going to make sure that every veteran who's been taken advantage of is going to be protected by the government, Charlton.
Yep.
This is what is not our administration was doing. So when you talk about this HIPAA scenario, Charlton, that's also the federal government that has an obligation to protect its own.
Yeah.
And hospitals as well as all these other agencies. I mean, when you're in the bed with the Russians and they're stealing American information, Charlton,
yep,
everybody has access.
Everybody has access to it. So I want to make sure, because Teddy Bruschi's information came out, and a lot of times when an athlete has an issue, the information comes out sometimes from people who don't need to know it. But if you're an individual and it's happening to you, you got to look into it, because, again, we've heard of identity theft, which is one of the fastest growing cyber crimes in the history of the universe. And it affects everybody, from credit card fraud, from people trying to buy a mortgage and saying that they're you, some people trying to sell a property saying that they're you, but actually signing their names on a car form, which is California real estate form, because they're ignorant or stupid. But there have been breaches, and people need to know. You can look at, I want to make sure that people know this, because a lot of us are dealing with parents and children and even ourselves. And the way people lie on people nowadays and they try to steal your information is HIPAA violation cases. You can Google it, and you'll find there are cases that have been paid out up to $4 million, because just because someone works at a hospital doesn't mean that they care about your interests. Bixie, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's always about protecting those who are around you. So often we think that people can understand and do things on their own, but you always have to check on the elderly people in your family. I mean, we see these situations all the time. You have all these robo companies and
yep,
calling elderly people, tell them they need to give up information. I get calls because I'm a senior citizen on my phone that you're being investigated by the IRS. There's a warrant out for your arrest. All these various things on these phone calls. And a person who is not salient, Charlton,
yep,
is going to panic and not want to lose things. So you're going to have to go wire some money to this destination so we can stop this warrant on you. Elderly people, Charlton, they have to give out, they'll give out information, they'll give out their social security number, they've given out their address.
Yep.
I always tell them, since you know who I am, I'll be at the front door when you get here.
Yeah.
That's what I tell you.
If you can get past them,
I will be at the front door when I get here. And I got my friend with me, and he don't have 4 legs, but
yep,
but we'll be at the door waiting on you.
And if you can get past the Rottweilers and the Smith & Wesson, then come on right on in, Big C. I mean, we just got to be honest, because a lot of people, they don't know. And when I hear people saying things that happen and working in the insurance and real estate industry, there's a lot of shenanigans that go on with people, and you just got to make sure there are people that might look into your background, but they're crooked themselves. You just got to be careful. I want to just say one more thing about the 4th of July and the gluttony, Big C. What would America be without gluttony? As I was telling you, just last week, I was getting some gas at a gas station in Northern California, and the guy rides up on a bicycle, and he says, "Excuse me, sir, I like your car." I said, "Thank you." He said, can you spare some change?" And he had a military hat on. And I don't know, I mean, he looked to be like he really needed some help. So I reached into my pocket, gave him a couple of change. I mean, I don't like people approaching me when you just never know nowadays. People get robbed, etc. But I wonder, with POTUS having this huge celebration in Washington, D.C., how our veterans that really fought, that did not have the deferments, how they really feel when they saw that parade, and on the fact that I think it was Joey Chestnut and somebody else. It was 71 and 31 hot dogs eaten in 10 minutes Thursday. I've been Chestnut, and there's another person by Mickey Sudo. Think about this. I know that they want to have those gluttony conversations and competitions, but is it really necessary for a conscientious society that has homelessness, people trying to get across the Rio Grande just to get to safety? You have parents passing away with their daughters in their arm, and then within the blink of an eye, we have a media showing people swallowing 70 hot dogs in about 10 minutes. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is Americana, where it's a very selfish country. We think about people that are starving in this country, that are homeless and hungry every day. And I understand this Nathan's has become a tradition in New York, and Chestnut, ate $71 hot dogs, and Mickey Sudo, the female winner, ate 31 hot dogs.
Yeah.
But as I think about Americans every day, and like I told you before, I always pass out a couple bags of food every day in my travels. I always keep them in the back seat of my car.
Yeah.
Because there's always somebody homeless and hungry in an intersection. I don't question them. They're standing there with a sign, so I give them what I can. I give them food. I want to make sure at least I gave you the opportunity to have a meal, Charlton.
Yeah.
And, the thing that I noticed most about this parade and celebration that the president had yesterday, Charlton, is what I did not notice. I did not notice former military personnel, Charlton. There's a Vietnam memorial in Washington. There's a World War II memorial in Washington, Charlton.
Yeah.
I did not see the veterans of those wars, Charlton, standing behind the president. I saw a lot of people that were his base that were standing behind. I saw a lot of young kids standing behind him, Charlton. People, some of them weren't even voting age.
Yeah.
Standing behind him. If you're celebrating our independence as a country, and you're celebrating our military, that they fought around the world for the sovereignty of this country, Charlton, those are the people that you should have had in the stands surrounding you. Those should have been the people that you were celebrating, not yourself.
Yeah.
And so you disrespect the military in every way, Charlton, by not having veterans there. You're going to tell me you could not round up 1,500 veterans that backed you? That's appalling right there within itself.
Yeah.
And for those VIP tickets, Charlton, there were not 1,500 veterans in America that were available to be there in Washington, D.C.
Wow.
Even fly them in, Charlton, with all the money that you wasted on this event.
Yeah.
Where were the veterans that we were supposed to have been celebrating, but yet you were embarrassed to stand in front of?
Well, that's very true, and it's all fair and love and war, but there's something that was brought to my mind this weekend, and it's called the Crown Act, CROWN. Now, as much as I read, I would have thought that I would have known about the Crown Act, Big C, because everybody of color needs to know about the Crown Act, and Europeans also. California becomes the first state to ban discrimination against natural hair. Now, I know many white Americans that you don't know what their hair color is because they bleach it. So that means it's not natural. But this Crown Act was not against white people, because I hardly know any white person that has their natural hair. They have dyes for different color hair. It's not the hair that was given to them by nature. So that would be unnatural. Would it be, Big C? But the Crown Act, it was to ban discrimination against natural hair, like cornrows and other hairstyles that are now protected under California law. But I did not know that there was a law in place to legally discriminate against people of color with dominant African-American hairstyles, and all life came from Africa. Even if you're dumb, you can Google Dr. Leakey and Gregor Mendo. That's for stupid people. But if you're smart, then you know all life came from the African continent. And if the life came from the African continent, according to science, that means that everybody came from Africa. Now, why was there not discrimination against people bleaching their hair, but against natural hairstyles? Big, for your thoughts.
Well, Charlton, it's called racism in America. I mean, you can have a law, but I mean, it's always been laws against minority people in America. I mean, even the president, and here he is talking about in his speech, saying that, women were able to get the Voting Rights Act where they could vote 100 years ago. But he didn't say minority women. These were white women. Only they could vote 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And if you're going to talk about what happened 100 years ago, the women got the right to vote, why didn't you talk about voter suppression that's going on today in the last election cycle, Charlton? The voter suppression that was going on, the people that were taken off the voting ballot, Charlton.
Down in Georgia, up in Milwaukee.
Moved off the voting polls.
Yeah.
Why didn't you talk about gerrymandering, Charlton? Redistricting.
Yeah.
If you're a president, you talk about making America great. Why didn't you address the issues that you're backing? Why didn't you address those that are, eliminating what minorities have access to in America?
Well, I just want to make this well known, because I always speak to a lot of African American kids, and sometimes you think that you can interact with different people. Everybody's trying to get a suntan. They're not trying to get a suntan to become more pale and white. They're trying to get some brown skin. It's called a dominant and recessive gene. We all know that if you read. But I just want to ask all of my white brethren who think, that law got past me, so I feel like I was ignorant, Big C. But I want to ask for every person that thinks we should pass a law on having a certain hairstyle for people of color. Let's check every white person and look at the root. And if the root's not natural all throughout their hairstyle, then maybe they should be discriminated against. That would kick a lot of people off the employment lines. I thought, what an egregious law, and I feel bad that I did not know about it, but it was brought to my attention by a Caucasian woman, so I appreciate that. And I just want people to know. Now, have you ever heard of anything such egregious as banning people from employment because of their hairstyle, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, it's no different than banning people from employment because of their color, Charlton, when you want to go down that path.
Yeah.
People do it all the time. You put in a law to say, okay, we're not discriminating against the color.
Yeah.
It's the hair.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's just a matter of rewording something.
Yeah.
You know, as a young man growing up, Charlton, and trying to get jobs while I was in college and, you know, being able to speak over the phone because we didn't have internet to send out resumes and things. So you did a job interview over the phone, or you make an appointment over the phone to go in and see someone.
Yeah.
When you arrive, you know, they're like, oh, well, you sound different over the phone.
Yep.
Well, no, you look different in person.
Yeah.
That's all they can say. They just couldn't say you sounded white over the phone and you look black here.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
All the different things over time that have been done, you know, the dog whistles that have constantly been used in society.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes you show up, they just fill the position. They're not doing any more interviews.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I made this reservation, this appointment days ago. And this was the first day that you were going to be interviewing.
Yeah.
I'm the second person that you're interviewing today.
Yep.
Because you asked me what times did I want to come in. I told you I'd be the second one.
Yeah.
And they filled the position with the first person that showed up.
Yeah.
And they had 3 positions open.
Yep. Well, it's the 4th of July, and it means that every Native American can really celebrate the arrival of Europeans. That, I mean, come on. Everybody, all life came from the same source. It came from Africa. So all the people looking at where their DNA came from, the DNA is like, where did people come from all over the planet? People say they came from Europe or they came from South America. According to scientists, everyone came from Africa. And to not go where the root came from would be like looking at someone who bleaches her hair and not looking at the color of her root, because the color of your root is where you really came from. Do your own experiment. I think it's all fair in love and war. I know we love sports, Big C. I want to say before we get into some more sports, we're going to come up on what's called the Big C pause. And after we take the Big C pause, we're going to come back and talk about a few more things that we love on Big C Sports. So once we take that Big C pause on this beautiful July the 5th of 2019, we'll come right back, and we hope you'll take it with us. All right, we are back on Big C Sports after what's called the Big C pause. And we really thank our sponsors for our growth. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker. You can follow Big C Sports on YouTube. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity Comcast Television. What I really like is the new app by Alexa. If you have Alexa, when you go home, say, Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear me say, welcome to the show. And then I'll introduce Big C and he'll do his thing. So we thank our sponsors for the support. Would you believe in the youth of America that always gives us hope? There's a young tennis player. I don't know if you've ever played tennis, Big C. I played it back in the day, but it was hard to understand how I'm supposed to catch up to a ball that's going 120 miles per hour on the serve, Big C. So I stuck to football, basketball, and martial arts instead, Big C. Your thoughts on tennis?
Well, Charlton, tennis is a very athletic sport. When you think about the athleticism of the men and the women, and to be able to dominate that little yellow ball, Charlton, that they're serving back and forth, and being able to hit it to the spots that you need to get it on the court. I mean, it's just a phenomenon going on over in Wimbledon across the pond right now, Charlton. You know, to have American pride surging the way that it is. And think about this. We've had American women across the pond dominating the sports world in the past couple of weeks.
Yeah.
We have a president who's spoken nothing but negativity about these women, Charlton.
Yeah.
And with the rise of Coco Gauff over there, Charlton, in Wimbledon, I doubt that the president will ever mention her name. And if she goes on to win Wimbledon, Charlton, as a 15-year-old, how far back will that set the president in his Aryan race superiority thoughts?
If you want to know about the Aryan race, just Google Dr. Mendo Gregorlicki. They came from Africa too, Big C, just a different skin color with melanin. That's a fact. Google it. I hate ignorant people, Big C. That's why I don't want to be one. And you think about what she's done. In Wimbledon, she was down 6-3. She was down 5-2. And she came back for another win. She's only 15 years old, and she advances to the round of 16. And it's amazing how it's nice when the underdog can win. I know the bettors like when the underdog wins because that's how they make their money, or the point spread. But this young girl, and she'll probably not, it'd be amazing if she won it. What do you think the odds of her to get to the 16th round is a win in itself, Big C? But if she could capture the whole thing, wouldn't that be amazing for 15-year-olds, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, she entered Wimbledon as the 331st ranked female tennis player in the world. The thing about a 15-year-old, Charlton, is the energy level that they have. That they can go on forever. They don't even understand about getting tired.
Right.
And when I look at Coco today, Charlton, in her first ever match at center court in Wimbledon, she didn't seem comfortable at first because the crowd was so huge.
Yeah.
And that can get to any athlete, Charlton. The jitters that you have, the emotional impact. Every female tennis player, every male tennis player strives to play center court in Wimbledon.
Yeah.
And in her third round match, she had advanced to that, Charlton. She was not supposed to be on center court, Charlton, at any point during Wimbledon, based on what all the bettors said. But, for her to rise up today, Charlton, against Pernilla Harder, she just dominated. The jitters were there, as you said. She was down in the first match. She lost it 3-6, Charlton.
Yeah.
And everyone figured that the fairy tale was over at that point.
No, it's not
over. But, the resolve that African Americans have had their entire life in this country, Charlton.
Yeah.
Coming from behind, being downtrodden, Charlton, everybody giving up on them, saying, hey, they can't perform. The stage is too big.
Right.
They don't have the mental capacity when they're down. They're just defeated. They don't know how to come back. This young lady should inspire everybody. I know we rant and rave about the U.S. women's soccer team, Charlton. But the history that we're witnessing here with Miss Coco Gauff, Charlton, is something for the ages. And making it to the fourth round, Charlton, as a 15-year-old, the first time this has ever been done, and ever been done by an African-American, Charlton, she showed that dominant spirit.
Yeah.
Once she got her legs up under and got the motion, that she put that away on the side of the court, Charlton, is that she went out there and recognized that she was just playing on a tennis court.
Yep.
Block out the crowd. And you think about to be prescient enough as a 15-year-old to get over the jitters and block out the crowd. I mean, we see grown men and grown women can't get over the emotions of performing. We've seen so many athletes lately crying, male athletes, dominant physical specimens out there crying because their emotions get the best of them.
Yep.
Miss Gauff today, Charlton, let the emotions get on her back in that first match. But I think when she turned to her parents, and this lets you know how important parents are in a child's life, is that she sit there, she's seen her mother. Her mother, when she was in college, was a competitive gymnast while she was in college.
Yeah.
Her dad was a collegiate basketball player. You think that they didn't go through hardships and that they were down as athletes, and they have not been prescient enough to train this young lady to understand what pressure is?
Yeah.
Is that you don't give up. I go back to the late, great coach, Jim Valvano.
Yeah.
Things may take your mind, they may take your body, but they can't take your spirit.
Yes.
And that's what she demonstrated today. She didn't give up. Just like Jimmy said, don't give up, don't give up, don't ever give up. And that's what Coco displayed today.
Yeah.
She displayed the courage of the late Jim Valvano when she was out there playing, Charlton. She did not have the will to give up. She did all that she could to pull out this match, Charlton.
Yeah.
And she made herself, her parents, and every African American proud today, Charlton.
Yeah, I especially when you think about the Crown Act. That I'm proud of Gavin Newsom. I know he talks a lot with Van Jones and how very politically inclined, and I always admired just his disposition. And I don't even know the man, but I know he lives in Northern California, up in Sacramento area, the governor now of California. But I'm proud that he signed that bill to end that discrimination. And you would have thought that it would have been signed under Jerry Brown. I met Jerry Brown when I was a younger man. But politics is all fair in love and war, and sometimes we're just ignorant. But I would like to see if whoever is a proponent of someone having a certain kind of hairstyle, let's crack down on any woman who dyes her hair. If you can't see that the root is the same as the end, maybe they should lose their job. But you think that would... What is there a chance of that passing, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, there's too many hair care product lobbyists that would not allow that to occur. You think about the amount of money that people spend in hair salons and hair care products on the shelf in retail stores, Charlton.
Yeah.
That act could never get through any type of Senate passing.
Yep. Well, the Crown Act got through. I wonder if they'll crack down on people with suntan. Now, sun tanning is $1 billion business. And last I understood, people who are sun tanning, they're trying to look like the skin color of those who were crowned of the Crown Act, Big C, with darker complexion.
You got to also understand that melanoma is $1 billion business Charlton, in trying to cure melanoma.
Yeah,
so one leads to the other.
Yeah.
So yes, you're going to encourage people to go out and tan, because you got a medical industry that's benefiting from it also.
I got a great insurance partner. He sells cigarettes, and he does operations on people that have like cancer from smoking. I mean, it's amazing. People are entrepreneurial here in the United States of America. You get them coming and going, is what he said. It's almost like the guy who has a car dealership, but he has a body shop and an insurance company too. You got to get him at all angles. It's all fair and love and war. I do want to touch on something that's happening in the world of baseball. I know that it's been said that people love the home run, and I think when you go back to the Yankees being over in Europe and seeing how many runs were scored, because they had a little bit shorter center field, I think 385, but they had a 16-foot wall. Now we have the All-Star game coming up, and people, the home run derby, could you imagine the home run derby is more exciting than how fast somebody can throw the ball? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, the graciousness about the home run derby is that you're looking for power.
Yeah.
Baseball has always been about power, the long ball. I mean, as we've looking at the home run records as they rose over time until Barry Bonds hit the 73, Charlton.
Yeah.
You know, the magical number for a long time was to get to 50 when Babe Ruth did it.
Yeah.
Then when Mantle and Maris, got to 60, then McGuire and Sosa got to that number, Charlton. And when there's a home run race, Charlton, baseball is always exciting. No one is concerned about a pitcher with a 1.5 ERA.
No.
Because in a way, that's kind of boring, because nobody
can hit him.
Okay, I'm sitting here, I can't even get a foul ball.
Yeah.
But when you got, I think people like watching the Baltimore Orioles play.
Yeah.
As a team, you got an ERA out of the bullpen of 6.5.
Like a football score, yep.
You got the worst, scoring production in baseball. You're giving up more home runs than anybody. So when the Orioles in town, people show up. They know it's going to be a logic pass. Just like when the Yankees show up, they're generally going to hit home runs.
Yeah.
So the home run derby was put into baseball's All-Star, weekend, Charlton, for just that fact, because it was fan excitement. It's like in the NBA where you have the skills contest, you got the three-point contest, you got the dunk contest. You want to see the things that occur in the game on a minimal basis, happening all the time, and that's what this home run derby does.
Yeah, it does that for sure, Big C. I remember one time I think I told this story before. I have a cousin that said he still holds a Little League baseball record for hitting a home run in California. I thought that's amazing. So he said he hit a church. He hit the ball so far across the street, and then it even went through the church window. But I think that's just part of, sometimes you get better as you get older. I don't know if it's true or not, but I think he's a pretty honest guy, Big C. That's what I think. But I do want to say, when you look at baseball and how wonderful it can be, and we have on 4th of July, you're not going to see a lot of stadiums full. That's just the way it is, because a lot of people don't have time to go out and watch baseball. They're out eating, Chestnut eat 75 hot dogs or something like that. I mean, what do you do with 75 hot dogs? Does it come out the same way it went in, Big C? That make any sense, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I couldn't eat 75 hot dogs in my life, because as a kid I went to a hot dog factory, and I saw how they were made.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, if you can sit there and enjoy a hot dog after going to a hot dog factory, you're a tough individual.
It's all
but
fair
when you talk about this home run derby, Charlton, they even call the cops to the home run derby practice today.
Really?
That's how exciting baseball is. You got to call in the cops. Christian Yelich hit a ball out of the park today, Charlton, into the Allegheny River.
Really?
And as you were talking about your cousin who hit the ball into the church window, Christian Yelich hit it into a yacht window out on the Allegheny River, Charlton, they called the police on it.
Yeah. Well, last I understand, if you're standing by a pool, you can't complain when you get wet, Big C, but some people do. It's all fair, love, and war. I do want to say I love the thing that we call baseball. It's just amazing, especially when you have people in the seats. And I want to just touch on this beautiful Friday. It really is a happy Friday for everybody in the sports universe. I hope that people had a great 4th of July. We know there are a lot of dumb people that would drink and drive anyway. I just hope that you didn't hurt anybody along the way. I want to say tonight's schedule: Kansas City at Washington, Milwaukee at Pittsburgh, Baltimore at Toronto. You have Boston, they're at Detroit, Big C. Boston's had some frequent flyer miles on those private jets that they use, Big C. or those corporate jets. They were in Europe, then they came to Canada, now they're back in the United States. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you got to love it, Charlton. Think about the types of food that they've eaten. They don't have to worry about just eating hot dogs.
Yeah.
You're going to get a chance eating some of the finest restaurants in Canada and in Europe, Charlton.
Yeah. You're saying that Joey Chestnut missed out, Big C? Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, I don't think they served any hot dogs on any of those flights that the Yankees and the Red Sox were on, Charlton.
Yeah, probably not, Big C. More baseball schedule on a beautiful July the 5th. New York Yankees at Tampa Bay, Philadelphia at New York Mets, Miami at Atlanta. You have the LA Angels still with heavy hearts. They're at Houston. You have the Texans at Minnesota. Colorado is at Arizona. Talk about two states where some things are I know some things are legal in Colorado. I don't know if it's legal in Arizona, but I knew they have their own issues. That state voted against a Dr. King holiday twice. Amazing, Big C. It's all fair and love and war. San Diego at Los Angeles Dodgers. The Dodgers, they're on pace to beat what Boston did last year. They're already over 60 wins. We're not even at the All-Star game, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's amazing for baseball. We talked about that earlier, that you got to win all you can during the regular season. It's not about winning too many games and having burnout.
Yeah.
Because the races are tight in all the divisions, Charlton. Nobody has more than a 5.5 game lead at the All-Star break.
Yep.
And so that's really competitive for baseball. So after this 4th of July weekend and All-Star break weekend, Charlton, now baseball can get down to the nuts and bolts.
Yeah.
But it's going to be exciting because there's a reason to go to the ballpark now, Charlton, not because your team is out of it, because your team happens to be in the pennant race.
Yeah, and you have Kershaw on the mound again, throwing tonight, so Dodgers might get another win over San Diego. Oakland A's at Seattle, and then St. Louis at San Francisco. They'll have a 3-day weekend up in San Francisco, a beautiful ballpark. And now it's called, I got to keep remembering the names. They changed these. I was there at the opening of what was called AT&T Park, and then Packville Park, one of those two. I know it was at the opening, and then it went to, now it's called Oracle Park, which is hard to announce, but when you have Silicon Valley money, I hear it's like $60 to park at Oracle Park. Your thoughts?
Well, I guess you're going to find some alternative means of transportation. You got to have some city buses out there or something that I'd be getting to the ballpark on.
Well, they're finding a way to pay for those ballparks. It's crazy, Big C. When you go, you spend almost as much money in parking as you do on food when you get inside of the stadium. I do want to say there's a lot going on in sports, and I know just last week we were covering some of the great players in college football and talking about quarterbacks and receivers. And I just want to finish up with some NFL talk. I want to get on some NFL thoughts too. But I just wanted to bring up to your attention, and I know you already know this stuff, and we talked about Lawrence out of Clemson. We talked about Tua at Alabama. We mentioned Fromm down in Georgia. And then we mentioned Herbert at Oregon, as well as a great quarterback in Eason for the University of Washington. But I want to get your thoughts on just a couple of more quarterbacks that I think will make a lot of noise this year in the world of college football. When we look at Nebraska, you have Adrian Martinez. He's a perfect dual threat quarterback for Scott Frost to rebuild his alma mater around. I remember that run pass option, and I think Martinez is going to be the kind of the mold of what Scott Frost was when Nebraska was actually competing for championships back in the day. Big C, your thoughts?
Yeah, Charlton, but he has to stay healthy. That's the thing. He showed some fragileness as a freshman last year. Young quarterbacks have to learn how to protect themselves. When you're a highly rated high school player and you come into the college level, you got to understand the guys that you're playing with at that level are bigger, faster, and stronger than the guys that you were playing against in high school.
Yeah.
So the best luck to Nebraska. It's a program that's once proud program. Scott Frost has come back to his alma mater, and it'd be nice to see him turn it around and be competitive once again, Charlton, in the Big Ten.
Let me get your thoughts. Sam Ehlinger, saw him what he did last year to Georgia down there in the bowl game. I think it was the Cotton Bowl or the Sugar Bowl down in Texas. It was a Jerry Jones place, but so it must have been the Sugar Bowl. Responsible for 41 of 52 offensive touchdowns, 25 passing, 16 rushing for the Texas Longhorn. He's a poor man's version of Vince Young. Big C in Texas should be a good team this year. Your thoughts?
Well, I liken him more to Tim Tebow, Charlton. He's a quarterback that does whatever he needs for the team to win.
Yeah.
He doesn't come out there with all the accolades and the high-flying statistics that everybody want to talk about. But you look at him and winning. And in this Mark Herman system, Charlton, he's been able to help turn around the University of Texas over the past 2 years. He forced a quarterback to transfer out of there that was the starter when he got there.
Yeah.
So he has grown in leaps and bounds. I know there's been a lot of critics out there that says he's not a quarterback. Well, he's doing a good enough job for Texas, and he had them in a bowl game last year.
Yeah, really true. Here's a guy that's going to jump from the frogs in the frying pan. Do they jump into the frying pan or out of the frying pan? I know it's either way. It's not all good for them. Justin Fields, ready or not, here he comes, touted, a highly touted Georgia transfer to Ohio State, a sophomore. Whenever you have to replace Haskins in 50 touchdown passes, and you know Ohio State is going to be right in the thick of things along with Michigan in that Big Ten conference. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charleston, Justin Fields reminds me a lot of Aaron Pryor, former quarterback who played at Ohio State under Jim Tressel.
Yeah.
You know, it looks a lot like him physically. I think he has a better throwing motion than Aaron Pryor had, Charleston. I think that he will be fine as a quarterback at Ohio State. We saw where they were last year. They were one game out of making it into the playoff carousel in the NCAA, Charleston.
Yeah.
This team, I think, is just as good as the team that they had last year at Ohio State. Their running game is coming back complete. Ohio State should be the top team in the Big Ten.
A team that's always overlooked but always in a bowl game or contention for the Pac-12 North is Stanford University. KJ Costello, Big C. That good boy completed 65% of his passes on 413 attempts. That's second most in school history. You're talking about a school that had the great John Elway, Jim Plunkett, and so many others that have played at Stanford, and now you have the great David Shaw there. This is a kid. Don't be surprised if Stanford ends up back competing for the Pac-12 North Championship. Your thoughts?
Well, Charleston, they've been the Achilles heel in Oregon the past couple of years out there. They've been the reason why Justin Herbert hasn't gotten all the accolades that he has. I mean, this is a very intelligent football team. You have a very intelligent quarterback. He's just going to be a sophomore. Everyone talks about Trevor Lawrence out there in Clemson because he plays in prime time. Don't turn your back on Castillo out at Stanford.
Here's a kid at Notre Dame that I know you like. His name is Ian Book. He played at Oak Ridge High School in El Dorado Hills up near Sacramento. And he's going to be he's going to have the target on his back this year, Big C. Book, he can throw the book at you. He completed 68% of his passes. That's a lot for a team in Notre Dame that likes to run. And you think about what he's done. He only had 9 starts, so he still hasn't had a complete season under him. But he came off the bench for a guy that really hadn't lost the game, Big Z. But if you have the chance to work on the Kelly system, I think Book completed 68% of his passes just due to short passes, like the 49ers did back in the day. He should have a good season for the Fighting Irish. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, coming in as the unpushed starter, Charleston, in this Notre Dame offense is going to make him feel a lot more comfortable.
Yeah.
And the team has confidence in him. Got him into the playoffs last year, Charleston. They ran up against a juggernaut in Clemson. But now with Book having those 9 games under his belt as a starter last year, he comes into the first game of the season, Charleston, as a bona fide starter.
Yep.
And with the leadership capability that he has, you can expect Notre Dame to complete the season they had again last year, Charleston. I don't see them losing more than 1 game during the regular season.
Well, Khalil Tate down in the desert of Arizona, he's a senior now. It's hard to figure him out at times, but he has the tools. You know, I admire Vince Young so much because of what he did back in the 2004 and 2005 Rose Bowls against Michigan and then USC. He had over 800 yards of total offense. I'm not saying Khalil Tate is like Young, but he sure does look like him at times. For Arizona, he has a strong arm, and this is his breakout season. He reminds me of Watson down there for the Houston Texans, Big C, but because he plays in Arizona a lot of late games at night, people really don't notice him, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charleston, I mean, he's playing with a guy who's been a quarterback guru, Kevin Sumlin, the coach that he has out there in Arizona. It's about Khalil Tate not reading his press clippings, Charleston, and I think that's what he did in his junior year. He came in after reading all his press clippings and forgot to go out on the field and perform. I mean, he has all the tools to be a fine quarterback in the Pac-12. The Pac-12 could be loaded in quarterbacks this year, and you think a guy being a senior, he should be competing with Justin Herbert to be one of the top quarterbacks in the conference, but it's going to come down to how he handles the press and handles playing on the field, Charleston.
Last college quarterback I'll get your thoughts on, Big C. Here's a kid who has a national championship and lost his job at halftime. Jalen Hurts for the University of Oklahoma now. We know he won a national championship as a starter at Alabama. And you think about what he's going to do. Here he is coming on trying to replace what Kyler Murray did, the NFL's first-round draft pick, and now Murray's down in Arizona playing for the Cardinals. But I get your thoughts on Hurts because he was a high school All-American down in Texas, then went on to start him at Alabama, and now he gets a chance to play for the Oklahoma Sooners. That's been the prize of the Big 12 Conference, Big C. Give me your feeling on what he doesn't have anything to prove, but if you don't get to the playoffs again, they'll say it was not a success. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, he has more pressure on him than any of those quarterbacks you just named. He has the same scenario at the University of Oklahoma that he had at the University of Alabama.
Yeah.
He has the top flight freshman quarterback coming into Oklahoma, challenging him, Charlton. So he can't go out and struggle, otherwise he's going to lose his starting job once again. I mean, Hurts has the tools. You hope that he becomes more of an accomplished passer, playing under Lincoln Riley's system, but he has a quarterback now as a true freshman coming into Oklahoma that's going to put a lot of pressure on him to perform also, Charlton.
Give me one more thought. You just triggered my mind. Jameel Holloway played at, I believe, Dominguez High School down in Compton. Went out to Oklahoma in 84-85 season, helped them win a national championship. They beat Penn State and Joe Paterno. I believe it was 25-10 down to the Old Orange Bowl in Miami. And that kid was amazing with his option and then passing ability. And now, would you consider Hurts at all in his ilk? They're about the same size, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Hurts, has always been a game manager. He grew up, his dad was his high school coach, Charlton, so he's always been built to be a quarterback. But just because you're built to be a quarterback don't mean that you'll always understand pressure. It's like we've looked at Coco over in England, this young 15-year-old phenom that is dominating the women's side of the tennis world. And so that's the same thing with Jalen Hurts. I mean, a lot of times quarterbacks don't take the extra time to get better. They come in, they've been anointed as a starter, and they figure that's enough to hold on to it, Charlton, and they don't work to get better. It's about being the last guy out of the meeting room. It's about asking the questions that nobody else would ask a question. You have to become a true leader as a quarterback. I'll always go back to a situation when I was in college, my junior year, and our starting quarterback got racked in the game and stuff. And, he was down. They had to send the medical staff after him. And the backup quarterback came to the head coach, said, "Coach, you want me to go in?" He said, "Look, son, you don't send a captain into the middle of the war when you have a general out there. Let him know you're not ready. You've never demonstrated leadership ability. You might be a quarterback on the roster, but you're not a leader." And he told him that at that point. He challenged him. He challenged him mentally and physically at that point. Told him, you weren't ready. I will put the guy back out in the game that's hurt because I don't trust you.
It's all about trust and how they figure it out, Big C. I want to just, before I finish up with the NFL, I know there's a big fight coming up with John Jones and then Santos. And Santos is a good challenge. It's 21-6. Jones is 24-1. And Jones is probably going to end this guy, Big C. May end them in the first 2 rounds. They may go 3, but I doubt it. Does it still turn you on when the UFC is fighting? Because we see so many of Amanda Nunes. She's fighting against Holly Holm. That's the fight I want to see mostly. Nunes is 17-4. Holly Holm is 12-4, but she was made famous by that knockout of Ronda Rousey. So that fight I'm more excited about, and I think can go either way, more so than John Jones and then Thiago Santos. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, you get to the point that you see so many MMA fights, Charlton, you become numb to them. It's like every 2 weeks there's another MMA fight. Unless you're there for the blood and gore, Charlton, that's the excitement about it. What I miss about boxing matches, especially the heavyweight matches, Charlton, there was always a build-up to it. It was always 6 to 8 months before someone fought again. They didn't fight every other weekend. And that's what you have in the MMA. It's so much, Charlton. It's like going to a pool hall. All you got to do is rack it up again if you lose. and that's what the MMA is like to me. It's like going to a pool hall. You're never going to lose. You can keep playing. and so whether somebody beats you and knocks an 8 ball on the break, Charlton, just rack it up and go again. And that's what the MMA is like. And here it is. You're talking about a championship fight where both fighters have 4 losses on the women's side. You didn't get that. You would have never gotten that, Charlton, back in the day in a heavyweight championship fight in the boxing world. When you go out there, the challenger or the champion normally had 1 loss or was undefeated. You didn't walk out there, well, heavyweight champion of the world with 7 losses.
Yeah.
You know, he's got 22 wins, 7 losses, and 1 draw.
Yeah.
You're the heavyweight champion of the world. No, that didn't happen, Charlton.
Yeah.
So the MMA, I think, it's excitement because people like violence. They like to think that they can go out there and compete.
Yeah.
From a layman's perspective, it was like that when that stuff first started off, but now these are highly trained athletes.
Oh, yeah.
But I think too much of something sometimes, Charlton, just takes away the luster of it.
Yeah. Holly Holm, when she fought Ronda Rousey, that was must-see. But now I don't know. Just like they're paying more money now, so more people are going to fight. I've worked out with some of the MMA fighters in Northern California. I think it's a tough business. You got to really get in the ring with skill. Ego will get you beat in about 10 seconds. Skill may make you last a round, Big C. I want to just close out on saying we're going to talk more about NFL football as we come back, after this 4th of July holiday and all the festivities. But I want to just say that as far as our sponsors, you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker. You can follow Big C Sports on YouTube. If you have Xfinity Comcast, you can watch Big C Sports on television. What I really love is the app by Alexa. When you go home, say, Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors, and then you hear me say, welcome to the show, and then I'll introduce Big C, and he'll do his thing. I love Curt Flood because people are making more money today, Big C, and that's important for everybody. Even media is making more money. But I do want to get just a thought on some football because I know we don't talk about football really 4th of July, but Big C Sports does. Anything in the NFL that perks your interest? We're just less than 60 days away from kickoff, Big C, for preseason.
Well, Charlton, yeah, we are. We don't talk a lot about it, coming into the 4th of July. But, the main thing that I look at going into the NFL, Charlton, in this upcoming year. Last year was a record year for as total touchdowns scored in the NFL. There was 1,371 touchdowns. You think about
That's a lot.
The NFL seemed like a basketball game at times.
Yeah.
They were scoring so many points.
Yeah.
And, there's so many teams right now, Charlton, that are prime with these high-powered offenses and the rule changes as far as the penalties that you can't touch players and you can challenge interference calls.
Yeah.
I think that record may go by the wayside. We might see a record 1,400 touchdowns this year in the NFL coming up in the 2019-2020 season, Charlton.
What makes football different now to back in the day when Lester Hayes could put a whole jar of peanut butter, stick them on his hands. It looked like peanut butter, Big C. Could you imagine if Lester Hayes played now? Give me your thoughts about players today against players back in the day, because you could grab guys. Jerry Rice would not have had 200 touchdowns if he was going against Lester Hayes. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, not just Lester Hayes. There were some dominant physical cornerbacks back in the era when I was playing in the game.
Yeah.
And now that physicality has been taken away from these guys, Charlton. You can't bump a guy after 5 yards. They used to beat up receivers all up and down the field. George Atkins, who was out there in that area where you are, who was a Raider great.
Yeah.
Lynn Swann still has nightmares about him. Every time the Steelers played the Raiders, he was going upside Lynn's head. But the defensive backs, they would line up receivers, Charlton. They didn't have guys running across the middle of the field freely. Even Julio Jones would have tiptoed back in the day.
Give me a feeling on Jack Lambert, part of that steel curtain defense. I thought Jack was a lot of hype because he had that Mean Joe Green defense, the White White, I think L.C. Greenwood in front of him. So by the time if they got to Jack Lambert, they had to be a heck of a player because they had a front line that was amazing. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, every great middle linebacker in the history of pro football has had a tremendous defensive line in front of them.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of teams, Charlton, where you could just pencil anybody in the middle and all of a sudden they would become an all-pro. The Steelers had that. When they had the steel curtain defense, they had that fearsome foursome up front, Charlton.
Yep.
They were just dominant, just like the Dallas Cowboys had in that day, Charlton.
Yeah.
You think about the 49ers during their run. They had a tremendous defensive front, Charlton, that protected their linebackers as well as the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
You think about what the New England Patriots have done. Bill Belichick has signed players continuously on the defensive line. They have protected his linebackers and allowed them to make big plays all over the field.
Well, it's all fair and love of war. I want to ask you one more thought about football. I want to ask you, we talk about Barry Bonds being arguably the greatest baseball player ever. Some people say it was Curt Flood. Some people say when it comes to basketball, they'll say it was Michael Jordan, or they'll say that maybe it's LeBron James or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Give me your thoughts on the best NFL linebacker you've ever seen, Big C, your thoughts.
Well, Charlton, I mean, that's a tough road. I mean, it's about errors, it's about the systems that you're in. And when we look at linebackers, there's all different positions that you play. You got rush linebackers, you got middle linebackers, you got weak side linebackers, you got strong side linebackers, Charlton. It's hard for me to categorize because everybody, just like you said with those basketball players, picks a player. But you got to pick a guy for a specific thing, and longevity has a lot to do with it. Some careers have been cut short, Charlton, through injuries, but you know, this is the reason why we have the Hall of Fame. They want to name who is the greatest of all time. You know, people will say undoubtedly that Lawrence Taylor was the best outside rush guy ever. I think Derek Thomas was better than Lawrence Taylor. Lawrence happened to be playing in New York at the time. Derek was in Kansas City. When we look at linebackers, Charlton, you know, people will all say Dick Butkus was the model linebacker for middle linebackers. He may not have been the best middle linebacker that ever played for the Bears. But he was the one at that time in that system. You know, I look at Willie Lanier, what he did in a time when African Americans couldn't even play middle linebacker in the NFL. Where he was a trailblazer, and he came in and started as a fourth-round draft pick out of Morgan State. He's in the Hall of Fame. So, I mean, you can find middle linebackers throughout the game. People want to talk about the guys they see on TV now, but you need to know about the guys who played before them.
It's all true. I love what we do with Big C Sports. I want to wish everybody a very happy holiday weekend. You got to know your rights. Google what your rights are if you're out there. Especially congratulate Gavin Newsom, Governor of California, for signing the Crown Act was illegal. And if they start fining people and saying you can't get a job if you have a certain hair color, mostly for African Americans, imagine for the white Americans who voted for that garbage. If they start firing you because the end of your hair doesn't match the root, you know what I'm talking about. You can find out the truth every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever any excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.